There are several experiences that are common to all of humanity, one of those being the question, what do you want to be? Of course, this question comes in many forms, most of which aren't explicit, but regardless, the form you're probably most familiar with is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Several years have passed since I was asked this in my childhood, and as a result I've become the type of person that gets irritated by this question. I mean, when do I become grown up? Is it when the government recognizes me as an adult? Maybe when I reach a certain thinly defined level of maturity, or how about when my genes decide that my body is done growing? Also, what's so important about being grown up? Will I not be able to change, or will I not be able to pursue some other goal? And why am I, a 6-year-old that wants to eat ice cream for breakfast, being asked about something that's more than twice my current life experience in the future? How am I supposed to have any clue of what I want to be, especially given that the question has seemingly infinite answers? Can I say I want to be happy, living in a specific country, of a particular marital status, rich, 6 feet tall, a penguin? But regardless, the question was asked, and over the course of my life it's been asked again and again, which makes me wonder, why do I keep getting asked this question, and why is it that most of the time the person asking is myself? Welcome to Labra Stories. In the pursuit of answering this, I'm going to be discussing the manga Blue Period. It also has an anime, but regardless, spoilers abound in this video, so do with that as you will. And with that out of the way, let's talk about why we keep asking this question.
俺はピカソの絵の良さがわかんない。俺でも描けそうじゃない？
The main character of Blue Period is Yaguchi Yatara. He's in his second year of high school, and by some regards, he's doing very well. He's ranked 4th in his grade, has a group of friends, and gets along with his teachers. However, he's only doing this because he's been told it's what he should do. His dad says that if he only studies, then he'll be a boring adult, and so he watches sports and slurps ramen with his friends. On the other hand, his mom says that he shouldn't fool around all the time, and so he studies. From Yatara's perspective, he's basically in an RPG. He only has good grades, and he's only good at socializing because he's put in more work at those than others. To put it in simple terms, Yatara is obedient because he's making his decisions based on what he's been told he should do. With this, the RPG metaphor makes some sense in that one's capabilities are a direct result of the time that they put into acquiring said skills, hence, in order to get better, you should grind levels. However, most people playing an RPG don't gain those levels just because the game says that they should. Rather, they do so in order to beat the game, to achieve a goal that they pursue because they want it. On the other hand, Yatara is lacking this desire, and in fact it seems that he doesn't have anything he wants to do. He doesn't have any hobbies, attends no clubs, and he doesn't even have a favorite class. I mean, I guess you could say that he enjoys his art elective, but not because he enjoys doing art. Rather, it's because the class is so easy that he can sleep for half of it and spend the rest of the time finishing an assignment. As of the current class, that's to depict his favorite scenery, but of course, rather than painting something he enjoys, he thinks of what his teacher might like and decides to draw that. And that means it's actually less that Yatara is playing an RPG so much as it is that he's an NPC in that game. He says what will make those around him happy, puts on a smile because he doesn't want to be a downer, and goes with the flow. Now, at this juncture of the story, Yatara is asked what he wants to be, the question coming in the form of the career survey form, which, given that the survey is a stand-in for one or all of Yatara's teachers, creates an interesting setup. So, what's important in this scenario is that the teacher has played a significant role in teaching Yatara, and by extension, there's someone that informs his idea of what he should do. Now, from the teacher's perspective, the reason they're asking the question is because they want to continue helping Yatara to learn, and by discovering what he wants to be, they can then help guide him towards that. However, from Yatara's perspective, since the person asking the question has informed him of what he should do, they've also given out punishment when he acts contrary to that. So then, what would he say if what he wants to be is at odds with what he thinks his teacher would approve of? Well, one result is that he lies, which is exactly what Yatara does, although he probably doesn't realize that. You see, Yatara's answer is that he'll say something reasonable. It's the basic, I'll be an office worker, doctor, engineer, firefighter, or whatnot. Completely non-controversial and acceptable answers. However, it's precisely because Yatara keeps saying that he wants to pursue this reasonable, obedient path that he's lost touch with his passions, the reason being operant conditioning. First described by B.F. Skinner, operant conditioning happens when a behavior is either rewarded or punished after it occurs in order to respectively reinforce or remove said behavior. In this instance, the behavior is the answer to the question, and if you give an obedient answer, then you are rewarded with social acceptance, which then teaches you that giving such a response is good. Of course, the reverse is also true in that if you said you wanted to be, a terrorist, then you would likely be exiled, although that's probably a bit of an extreme example. A better example would be if you said you wanted to be a painter, and as per the stereotype you get confused looks because art school is far too expensive and being a painter doesn't even earn any money. Understandably, that's rather awkward, and so as a result, especially with the malleable mind of a child, you learn that it's better to live in line with what you should do because that keeps the people around you close. Hence, it's understandable that if you repeat this for several years, you would end up sculpting your actions to the teachings of others, which is a lie in that you're denying yourself of what you want. So, this is where we find Yatra at the beginning of Blue Period, a person that believes that they're doing just fine because their mentors say he is. However, he's also a teenager. In fact, he's almost an adult, and as he progresses to move towards independence, he's beginning to realize that something is missing. That despite being praised for his grades or his popularity, he doesn't feel satisfied, and as the first chapter progresses, he realizes that's because while he is socially accepted, he isn't accepted as himself. He's practically a yes man, saying what will make his friends happy and cheering alongside them so that he doesn't bring down the mood, which Yatra says is the only way he knows how to communicate. However, out of a desire to be more than that, and upon recalling his art teacher saying that art is a language without words, he decides to express himself by painting early morning Shibuya. Of course, while doing so, he comments on how unfamiliarly frightening it is to say what he wants, but upon having it complimented, he feels like he's really been accepted as himself. Now, this is essentially where Chapter 1 ends, and in the interest of keeping this video bearable, let's speed up. For starters, Yatra treats his painting as a one-off thing, but despite saying that, he's inevitably drawn back to creating art, which results in him joining the art club, convincing his parents to let him pursue an art career by applying to Tokyo University of the Arts, or Geidai for short, after which he then begins attending a cram school in order to better his chances of acceptance. And he'll need all the help he can get because Geidai's acceptance rate is an incredibly low 5%. Part of this is because not only is it regarded as the best arts university in the country, its tuition is only 500,000 yen per year, so pretty much everyone gives it at least one attempt. But the even more important factor is that Geidai never accepts two applicants with the same style. In this, the university is asking what the applicants want to be, but specifically they're looking to see if they can express themselves uniquely. To put it bluntly, Yatra, who only just started drawing about 600 days before the exam, has his work cut out for him, but given that hard work is the one thing he's good at, he's going to give it his all. To this end, he learns all sorts of artistic skills like perspective, composition, colors, materials, tools, etc. But while he does so, I felt like the story becomes somewhat cyclical. Now, a large reason for this feeling is that pretty much all of chapters 6 through 14, Yatra goes through a try-fail cycle. Such a cycle is a part of the story where a character repeatedly attempts to do something only to subsequently fail that task, and the purpose of doing so is to show growth and to explore whatever issue may be at hand. Of course, there's nothing wrong with this because Yatra isn't going to magically become really good at art, and so the audience is going to have to see him slowly get better. Rather, the part that's bugging me is that over the course of this cycle, Yatra has one overarching problem that he can't seem to solve despite being given the solution explicitly and multiple times. For context, while Yatra attends the cram school, he often looks at his classmates' pieces and notices that their artwork mysteriously draws him in, but such a quality is missing from his own creations. Additionally, Yatra recognizes that this means he won't stand out during the Geidai exam, and so in an attempt to solve this, he goes about learning the aforementioned skills. Now, this approach isn't entirely misguided, as these tools are all different forms of expression, and by improving at them, he is expanding what he is capable of making a canvas display. However, it doesn't matter how many forms of expression he learns, he still can't figure out how to make art that draws him in, and he doesn't understand why until chapter 14 when his instructor pulls him aside for a one-on-one consultation. As his instructor puts it, what's holding Yatra back is his lack of adaptability, or rather, self-centeredness. This confuses Yatra as these two concepts seem like polar opposites, but it's not so much that he lacks these qualities as it is that his approach on them is backwards. As it turns out, in fact, Yatra hasn't really changed since the story started. You see, while Yatara was lost in obedience, he had a lack of passion, but he thought, or was at least told, that he could achieve happiness through obedience alone. As it turned out, this led to a hollow experience that left him as a replaceable yes-man. In the same way, he struck out to make compelling art by learning all of these methods of expression, or in other words, how art should be made, but because he isn't making these pieces in regards to himself, they're essentially imitations of what he's seen. Hence his instructor's insight, because it isn't that Yatara can't adapt, it's that he's adapting himself to how art should be made, rather than adapting those expressions to himself. Of course, this is a solution that's been staring him in the face ever since he learned about the Geidai exam policies, but it's also the same conclusion that he realized in Chapter 1, that the secret ingredient that was missing, be it from his life or art, was some element of himself. But actually, not only is the solution the same, so was the problem, because in each case, somebody, or buddies other than Yatara, was asking him what he wanted to be. As a result, Yatara tried to conform to that source because he wanted to be accepted by it, rather than finding what he wanted and then hoping that they would accept that. And I think that's the point of this try-fail cycle, because it's hard to tell whether you're adapting yourself or adapting to yourself. I mean, Yatara probably thinks that he's putting himself into his art because he's the one making it, however, it's continuously shown that that isn't the case. But now that he recognizes that, he can start to solve his problem by asking himself what he wants to be. Which makes sense. I mean, the question is about you, so then obviously you should do the introspection to answer it, rather than considering it from an outside perspective, although that doesn't mean you could ignore the outside world either. That would be like trying to draw on water with a stick, which of course doesn't work because you've ignored the way that physics works. As such, you need both obedience and passion, but said passion, you, needs to be at the core. With this insight, a few more chapters pass, and in due time Yatara is accepted to Geidai, although again, that's not to say that he's suddenly much better at art. I mean, he doesn't even know what he wants to express, much less how to. To illustrate, while working on his first assignment, a teacher asks Yatara why he's making an oil painting. Rightfully, this confuses Yatara because he's in the oil painting course, so of course he's going to make an oil painting. But then again, is his assignment something that should be expressed in oil? Like, if I wanted to express my dissatisfaction for cheese curds, then I could make a drawing, however, I would ultimately fail to get the idea across, partially because I can't draw, but that basically means I can't express this idea in such a medium. As such, I should choose a more appropriate form of expression like interpretive dance. Returning to Yatara, let's assume that he knows what he wants to express, so then how should he express that, and what is he supposed to do if that form of expression doesn't exist? Okay, obviously just invent it, but I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's take a step back from Yatara and instead look at Geidai, which has some interesting institutional practices. For starters, the first phase of the Geidai entrance exam is a standard pen and paper test, which I assume is meant to make sure that the applicants are capable of learning or something. I don't know, Blue Period doesn't really mention what the test is specifically about, but in any case, there's a rumor that whoever scores the highest on this test is automatically accepted regardless of how they performed on the art portions of the entrance exam. As for Yatara's class, this role goes to Takahashi, who up to this point has acted as a friendly rival to Yatara due to how Takahashi is just so good at art. Ironically, this acceptance to Geidai regardless of how well he could make that art is a massive insult to his abilities, which then begs the question of why Geidai would do this, and the reason is that they see Takahashi as a Picasso. For context, Picasso was raised as a genius painter due to everyone recognizing his innate talent as a child. As such, they applauded him, and in the hopes that he created masterpieces, Picasso was raised to paint like an adult. He was told that he should paint a certain way, however, after years of doing so, Picasso came to realize that he never wanted to paint like an adult. Instead, his passion was to paint like a child, and so in order to find a way to express that passion, he created Cubism. In a similar manner, Takahashi has been creating art since he was a child, and has always been praised for its quality, although that praise is impressively sadistic. His mom says that she likes his art, but that other one is better. Additionally, she lets Takahashi decorate the entrance to their house with his work, but Takahashi only puts up the ones that his mom likes because doing otherwise would bring criticism. In this, it's clear that Takahashi is making art not out of passion, but as an obligation to satisfy his surroundings, which is practically a one-for-one with the life of Picasso. As such, Geidai is looking to influence Takahashi with the hopes that he'll revolutionize the art world by creating a new form of expression, which is ironically misguided. After all, Cubism was something that Picasso created as an expression of himself, which, if we go by the same pattern, so will Takahashi's, which can only be created if he comes to a realization of himself. And I think that's why we keep asking what we want to be, because the answer is obviously us, but we constantly need to remind ourselves to look for that. After all, it seems like we're always being asked the question from all directions, and so it's easy to get lost. But if we ask the question ourselves, whether as a quick checkup or a wake-up call, we can start to move a bit closer to being ourselves. For me, that's really important, because as I live alongside 8 billion other people on this planet that's zooming through the vast universe, I don't want to be a replaceable NPC or a dehumanized cog in a machine. I want to contribute something that only I can. Of course, that's not entirely possible, because I'm sure I'm doing something without passion without even realizing it. It might even be these videos I make, but regardless, I'm going to keep asking the question, because if there's anything I want to be, it's me. Thanks for watching. Now go and get a slice of your own life.